Hi there, my name is Timmy Joe, and today on the program we are going to be talking Nintendo, one of my favorite consoles of all time. I'm a huge Nintendo fanboy, an early adopter of this here Wii U piece of garbage, and we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch and some breaking news about it that could be its saving grace, or I'm going to discuss what could be the nail in the coffin for Nintendo. So cue up an intro. We're going to talk all about Nintendo news. Alright, so Nintendo news. This little jobby here, the Wii U, was, a console that came out right after a huge success for Nintendo, and I think they rushed it to market. I remember being kind of surprised when I heard about it. I was hoping Nintendo would kind of take the success of the Wii and upgrade the hardware in their next console so it competed with Xbox and PlayStation. And, when I jumped on board with this thing, I didn't buy it because it was a, screen and a controller. I didn't buy it for those kinds of features. I bought it to play HD Mario because the Wii had no capabilities for HDMI or native 1080p support. In fact, even if you upscale Wii games using the Wii U, because it does that, it still looks pretty terrible. And you know what? I'm worried about Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch launch because everyone's excited. It was actually some of the biggest gaming news of 2016 near the end. Everyone was a buzz about the Nintendo Switch, the new news coming out about it and talking about it like crazy. And Xbox and PS4, they were low in the news. No one was really talking about them, even though they just launched 2 new consoles, because they were just like little refreshes of what we've been seeing from those 2 companies for so long. But we'll get to some big news in a second about the Nintendo Switch, at least what could be big news, all Twitter speculation aside. I'm going to talk about the Wii U a little bit. So I bought it when it came out, all excited, and it launched with, a side-scrolling Mario game in HD, so that was all right. Mario is Mario, but they had the same kind of game out for the Wii already, and we had seen the same thing on the 3DS and everything. So we were waiting for like a Super Mario Galaxy kind of game to really wow us with the visuals that this thing's capable of. Now it's not it doesn't have crazy hardware or anything, but it is capable of making some pretty nice looking games in my opinion. Especially at like the Nintendo level. Cartoony graphics don't need crazy hardware. And Nintendo made this thing hard to develop for, and they were saying this like screen was going to be really cool to play like Watch Dogs on, and it's going to be really cool to play other games like Batman Arkham, and they released these games and they didn't really do that well. And in total, the Wii U only had 150 US titles that were like real, AAA games launched for the Wii U. And that's in contrast to 410 on the 3DS, 1,261 official games for the Wii. Even the GameCube had 552 titles. And then, back in the day, they didn't need as much, but the Super Nintendo, 719 total US releases. Even the Nintendo 64 had near 300, and it was kind of the Wii U of its time. Like, it didn't do too well. It had good potential, but people were buying the PlayStation because it was cheap and there were a million games out for it. So the downfall of the Wii U was not its weird hardware setup or its lack of being able to play the ultimate most crazy NBA 2K and all that stuff kind of games, the newest Assassin's Creed or the newest Call of Duty. It was no native game support. We got a game once every couple of months for the Nintendo Wii U directly from Nintendo when we wanted it to, so we could play HD Mario Kart right away. Didn't launch for a few years. Super Mario 3D World, only came out, a couple years ago? It was far away from the launch of the Wii U, and that was its downfall. If Nintendo would have put all of its eggs into getting a Pokemon game out, Super Smash Brothers out, Super Smash Brothers out for it, an actual Zelda game, not just an upscaled version of Wind Waker, then maybe they could have made this a success. Now, Nintendo's had some success with their 3DS. Like no doubt about it. So taking this and making it mobile isn't a bad idea at all. That's for sure. And they had success with, a few things recently, like I'm sure Super Mario Run will be a big hit for them, and Pokemon Go was a huge hit for them, and they've had some Pokemon games launch recently. So I'm sure they're doing well enough to take the Switch and make sure they get every possible game out for it as soon as possible. Now, you can't just do that and expect all the games to be high quality, but I mean, Nintendo's been doing this for a long time. They know how to make a Mario game successful, a Zelda game successful, a Metroid game successful. And I think that third-party apps and third-party games for the Nintendo Switch aren't going to be what makes it a success. It's going to be Nintendo realizing that their best games need to launch within the first year of the console launching. And that's why I was really worried at first, and I was actually just going to flat out in this video say that the Switch was going to be, another Wii U, and it was going to be the death of the company. But I actually was doing some research for it, and I found, I guess, Laura Kate Dale, a well-known Nintendo Switch insider who's been reporting advanced knowledge of the Switch since well before it was officially announced, released some big news today on Reddit saying there will be a Nintendo Live broadcast on January 12th, showcasing the Switch's hardware as well as a few launch games for a UK launch of January 17th. And this is in prep for a South by Southwest tour with the Switch. She also tweeted that Zelda Breath of the Wild will be available at the US launch in March, which is great news. There was some speculation that Zelda was nowhere near complete. So this is great news coming out of Nintendo today, but that's not the only thing that's going to save the Switch. The Switch needs to, run well, have a good launch, not have all kinds of connection issues and, patches and bricking systems and stuff like that. And it also needs a lot more than that in the games department. It needs a Mario title within the, in its launch, cycle in the first month or so. It needs, some game demos of some other popular, like a Kirby game, and, not just something like Epic Yarn, but like something, some real game-changing stuff to save them, because third-party developers might want to develop for this system, but it's only if it's a success with the Nintendo products, which the Wii U was not. So here's crossing our fingers. We know that this isn't going to be some killer system. It's going to have a Tegra chip in it. That is a mobile phone chip or a tablet chip. It's what runs the NVIDIA Shield and stuff like that. So it's not going to be playing the most crazy titles, but I've seen some rumors that this thing connects to the cloud and actually borrows CPU power from the cloud. And we know that it's not going to run very great on the tablet itself. But that actually kind of makes sense because the tablet itself is only 720p. And I think that this thing's only like 480. Like the tablet on this thing's terrible, and it's still playable. So it being 720p, I'm sure they can get away with that. But plugging it into the TV with a solid internet connection could probably add a lot more to the system, and maybe let it play some, Call of Duty style games and stuff like that. Have it run Skyrim really well. But again, that could be the folly, because if you don't have a good internet connection, maybe it's just not going to work for you. So we'll have to see what March brings, what the launch of the Switch brings. And, if I can afford it and the first month or so looks good for it, I would definitely buy it, because I'm just a huge Nintendo fan and I'm looking forward to playing some of those titles that we've been aching for. There hasn't been a new Metroid since the Wii, or you can play it on 3DS, but that's not the same thing in my opinion. I want to play it on my television. So what are you guys' thoughts? Do you think that the Switch is going to be a success? Do you think it's going to have a bunch of launch titles, or do you think Nintendo's just going to fumble this up? I certainly hope not, because I think the last thing we want is Nintendo to stop making hardware and to make a switch to just making games for the Android operating system and the iPhone. And, it would be terrible if it came the day that Nintendo was like Sega and couldn't keep up, and you ended up playing Mario on an Xbox or a PS4. That would be a sad day. So my name's Timmy Joe. Thanks very much for listening to me ramble about the Nintendo. We'll have to see what comes March. But it's going to fly by. We've got CS and some other things coming up, and we'll probably hear a lot more rumors and news before the launch. So I'll be up all over that. You guys have a good day. Timmy Joe, and I'll keep frosty comments below. Ow!